The studio lights buzzed with anticipation as the audience settled into their seats for another episode of The View, the long-running daytime talk show known for its lively discussions and occasional fireworks. On this particular day, the guest list included country music superstar Blake Shelton, who sauntered onto the set with his signature charm, wearing a plaid shirt and jeans that screamed down-home authenticity. The hosts Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and Alyssa Farah Griffino welcomed him with applause, but there was an undercurrent of tension in the air, perhaps from recent headlines about Shelton's outspoken views on politics and culture. As the segment began, Whoopi kicked things off with a light-hearted question about his latest album, but quickly steered the conversation toward more controversial waters, asking about his thoughts on the current state of American entertainment and its intersection with social issues. Blake, ever the straight shooter, responded with a quip about how Hollywood had lost touch with everyday folks, drawing chuckles from the crowd but a raised eyebrow from Whoopi. The exchange started innocently enough, with Blake sharing anecdotes from his life on the ranch and his marriage to Gwen Stefani, but as the minutes ticked by, the hosts probed deeper into his conservative leanings, contrasting them with the show's more progressive slant. Joy Behar chimed in with a pointed remark about country music's role in perpetuating stereotypes, which Blake deflected with humor at first, saying something like, "Well, Joy, if loving my truck and my beer makes me a stereotype, then guilty as charged." The audience laughed, but Whoopi wasn't amused, pressing him on why he hadn't spoken out more on certain social justice matters. Blake leaned back in his chair, his easy smile fading slightly as he explained his belief in personal freedom over public grandstanding, emphasizing that artists should entertain, not lecture. This sparked a back and forth that grew increasingly animated, with Sunny Hostin jumping in to challenge his views on inclusivity in the music industry. Blake held his ground, citing examples from his career where he'd collaborated across genres, but the tone shifted when Whoopi accused him of being out of touch with the struggles of marginalized communities. The camera panned to the audience, some nodding in agreement with the hosts, others cheering for Blake, creating a divided atmosphere that only fueled the brewing storm. As the first commercial break approached, the discussion had already veered into heated territory, with Blake's voice rising just a notch, defending his right to his opinions without being labeled. Little did anyone know, this was just the beginning of what would become an explosive clash that would dominate headlines for days. The producers in the control room exchanged nervous glances, sensing the volatility, but the show must go on, and so it did, plunging headfirst into the controversy that was about to unfold. Blake's hands gripped the armrests of his chair, his Oklahoma drawl thickening with frustration as he tried to articulate his points amidst the interruptions. Whoopi, with her decades of experience, moderated with authority, but her own passions were ignited, leading to a direct confrontation that would test the limits of daytime TV decorum. The segment resumed after the break with even more intensity, as if the pause had allowed tempers to simmer rather than cool. Blake attempted to pivot back to his music, promoting his new single, but the hosts weren't having it, circling back to the earlier debate with renewed vigor. This pattern of push and pull continued, building a narrative of ideological divide that captivated viewers at home, many of whom were tweeting furiously about the unfolding drama. By the end of this initial phase, the stage was set for the real fireworks, with Blake feeling increasingly cornered and Whoopi determined to hold her ground as the voice of reason on her show. As the conversation delved deeper into the heart of the matter, Blake Shelton found himself navigating a minefield of questions that seemed designed to provoke rather than inform. Whoopi Goldberg, seated at the head of the table with her iconic dreadlocks and no-nonsense expression, leaned forward, her eyes locking onto Blake's as she posed a question about his stance on gun control, a topic that had recently made waves in country music circles. Blake responded thoughtfully, drawing from his rural upbringing where firearms were tools for hunting and protection, not symbols of violence, but his words were met with immediate pushback from Joy Behar, who quipped about the need for stricter laws to prevent tragedies. The audience murmured, a mix of agreement and dissent rippling through the crowd, amplifying the tension. Sunny Hostin added her legal perspective, citing statistics on gun violence that Blake countered with anecdotes from his community. arguing that the issue was more about mental health than weaponry. Alyssa Farah Griffin tried to bridge the gap, acknowledging valid points on both sides, but Whoopi steered the ship back to confrontation, accusing Blake of romanticizing a dangerous culture. His face reddened slightly, not from anger yet, but from the frustration of being misrepresented, as he explained his support for responsible ownership and background checks. The back and forth escalated when Sarah Haynes brought up climate change, questioning how someone like Blake, who owned vast farmlands, could downplay its impacts. Blake chuckled at first, saying he was all for clean air and water but skeptical of alarmist rhetoric that hurt farmers economically. This drew groans from parts of the audience, and Whoopi interjected sharply, "Blake, honey, skepticism is fine, but denial is dangerous," her voice carrying the weight of her activist background. Blake fired back, "Whoopi, with all due respect, I've seen more of this country from the ground up than most, and I know what's real versus what's hype." The exchange grew more personal, with Whoopi referencing past celebrity feuds and Blake alluding to the echo chamber of liberal media. The producers signaled for a wrap-up, but the momentum was unstoppable, each side digging in their heels. Viewers at home could feel the electricity through their screens, as social media exploded with hashtags like #Blake vs Whoopi trending in real time. Blake's body language shifted, his relaxed posture giving way to crossed arms and a furrowed brow, while Whoopi maintained her composure but with a fire in her eyes that suggested she was ready to defend her turf. The other hosts contributed sporadically, some trying to de-escalate, others fanning the flames with pointed questions. As the segment wore on, it became clear that this wasn't just a debate but a clash of worlds: a rural America versus urban progressivism, embodied by a country crooner and a Hollywood legend. Blake attempted humor to lighten the mood, joking about how they'd all get along better over a beer, but Whoopi wasn't biting, pressing on with inquiries about his political endorsements. The intensity built like a crescendo in one of Blake's songs, leading to moments where voices overlapped, interruptions flew, and the moderator's gavla in this case, Whoopi's authoritative tone, struggled to regain control. By the midpoint of this heated dialogue, the studio felt smaller, the air thicker, as if the weight of unspoken grievances hung over everyone. Blake's patience, usually as vast as his Oklahoma ranch, began to wear thin, hinting at the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. The audience, sensing the shift, held their collective breath, waiting for the next volley in this verbal battle royale. The turning point came when the discussion veered into the realm of cancel culture, a topic that hit close to home for both Blake Shelton and Whoopi Goldberg, given their public personas and past controversies. Whoopi, drawing from her own experiences with backlash over statements, challenged Blake on why he seemed dismissive of accountability in the entertainment industry. Blake retorted that what some called accountability felt more like mob rule, where opinions were silenced if they didn't align with the mainstream narrative. His voice rose an octave as he cited examples of fellow artists who'd been ostracized for minor missteps, arguing for forgiveness and dialogue over exile. Joy Behar jumped in with a sarcastic remark about privilege allowing such views, which Blake met with a sharp, "Joy, privilege is assuming everyone thinks like you in your New York bubble." The audience gasped, some applauding, others booing, creating a cacophony that mirrored the chaos on stage. Sunny Hosting tried to refocus on systemic issues, but Whoopi took the reins, her face stern as she said, "Blake, you're a talented man, but talent doesn't excuse ignorance." This struck a nerve, and Blake leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "Ignorance? Whoopi, I've built my career on hard work and honesty, not on preaching from a pedestal." The clash intensified, words flying like daggers across the table, with Whoopi defending the importance of using platforms for positive change and Blake insisting that forced activism was inauthentic. Alyssa attempted mediation, suggesting common ground in their love for music, but the momentum was lost in the heat. Sarah Haynes posed a question about representation, which Blake answered by highlighting his diverse collaborations, but Whoopi countered that actions spoke louder than words, implying his silence on certain issues was complicit. Blake's frustration boiled over, his drawl turning clipped as he accused the show of ambushing him with gotcha questions instead of a genuine interview. The control room buzzed with activity, producers debating whether to cut to commercial, but the live broadcast rolled on, capturing every raw moment. Social media feeds lit up with clips being shared in real time, fans rallying behind Blake with comments like "Tell Blake," while others supported Whoopi, praising her for holding him accountable. The energy in the studio was palpable, sweat beading on brows under the hot lights, as the debate devolved into overlapping shouts. Whoopi, ever the professional, tried to regain control by banging her hand on the table lightly, but Blake wasn't backing down, standing his ground on principles he held dear. This phase of the confrontation revealed deeper divides, not just between guest and host, but reflective of broader societal rifts. As the argument peaked, Blake's chair scraped back slightly, a subconscious signal of his growing desire to exit, while Whoopi's posture remained unyielding, a testament to her resilience. The other hosts exchanged glances, unsure how to proceed, as the once friendly chat turned into a full-blown spectacle. Viewers tuned in for entertainment got more than they bargained for, a reminder of how quickly civility can crumble under pressure. By the end of this explosive segment, the air crackled with unresolved tension, setting the stage for the dramatic climax that would soon unfold. In the heat of the moment, the clash between Blake Shelton and Whoopi Goldberg reached its zenith, transforming the set of The View into a battlefield of ideologies where neither side was willing to concede. Whoopi, her voice booming with authority, directly confronted Blake about his perceived lack of empathy toward progressive causes, saying, "Blake, in this day and age, silence is violence, and your platform could do so much good if you just step up." Blake, now fully agitated, shot back, "Whoopi, forcing people to toe a line ain't freedom, it's the opposite of what America stands for." The audience erupted, cheers and jeers blending into a roar that drowned out attempts at moderation. Joy Behar added fuel to the fire with a quip about red state mentalities, prompting Blake to slam his fist on the table, not hard enough to break anything, but enough to send a shockwave through the panel. "Enough!" he exclaimed, his face flushed. "This isn't a discussion, it's an interrogation." Sunny Hostin tried to interject with facts, but Blake waved her off, accusing the hosts of bias and agenda pushing. Whoopi, unflinching, retorted, "If calling out hypocrisy is bias, then guilty as charged." The exchange devolved into chaos, with crosstalk and raised voices making it hard for the audience to follow. Alyssa Farah Griffin appealed for calm, but her words were lost in the fray. Sarah Haynes looked on in wide-eyed surprise as Blake stood up abruptly, his chair tipping slightly. "I'm done here," he declared, his tone laced with finality. Whoopi, not one to be outdone, stood as well, pointing a finger and saying, "You can leave if you can't handle the heat, but don't pretend you're the victim." The studio fell into a stunned silence for a split second before the murmurs began, cameras capturing every angle of the standoff. Producers rushed in from the wings, whispering urgently, but the live feed continued, broadcasting the meltdown to millions. Blake turned to the audience, shaking his head in disbelief, muttering something about respect before heading toward the exit. Whoopi sat back down, composing herself with a deep breath, as the other hosts scrambled to fill the awkward void. Social media went into overdrive, with memes and clips spreading like wildfire, some hailing Blake as a hero for standing up, others criticizing him for storming off. The incident highlighted the deep polarization in American discourse, where even a talk show appearance could ignite such passion. Backstage, crew members buzzed with excitement and concern, wondering about the fallout. Whoopi, ever resilient, signaled to continue the show, transitioning to the next segment with her trademark wit, but the energy had shifted irrevocably. Blake's departure was swift, his boots echoing down the hallway as he left the building, paparazzi already gathering outside. This climactic explosion would be dissected for weeks, with pundits weighing in on who was right and who crossed the line. The View's ratings spiked, proving that controversy sells, but at what cost to civil conversation? As the dust settled on set, the hosts reflected briefly before moving on, but the memory of that fiery clash lingered, a testament to the power of unfiltered opinions clashing in the public eye. Following Blake Shelton's dramatic exit from The View, the studio was left in a state of stunned disarray, with Whoopi Goldberg taking a moment to address the audience directly, her voice steady despite the chaos. "Well, folks, "That's live TV for you. Sometimes things get real," she said with a wry smile, attempting to diffuse the tension as the other hosts nodded in agreement, though their expressions betrayed a mix of shock and amusement. The camera lingered on the empty chair where Blake had sat, a symbolic void that spoke volumes about the abrupt end to the segment. Backstage, Blake was reportedly fuming, venting to his team about feeling ambushed and disrespected, vowing never to return to the show. Word spread quickly through the entertainment grapevine, with fellow celebrities texting their support or criticism, depending on their allegiances. Gwen Stefani, Blake's wife, took to social media with a subtle post about standing by your truth, which fans interpreted as solidarity. Meanwhile, on air, the hosts pivoted to lighter topics, but the elephant in the room loomed large, with Joy Behar cracking a joke about needing a stiff drink after that. Viewers at home flooded comment sections and forums, debating the merits of the argument, some praising Whoopi for her poise, others decrying the show's alleged liberal bias. The incident sparked a broader conversation about guest treatment on talk shows and the fine line between robust debate and outright hostility. In the hours that followed, clips of the clash went viral, amassing millions of views on platforms like YouTube and TikTok, with edited versions adding dramatic music for effect. Blake issued a statement through his publicist, expressing disappointment in how the interview unfolded but reaffirming his beliefs without apology. Whoopi, during a later episode, reflected on the event, emphasizing the importance of diverse viewpoints while noting that respect must be mutual. The fallout extended to sponsors and network executives, who monitored public reaction closely, relieved when ratings reports showed a significant boost. Social commentators analyzed their body language, tone, and word choices, turning the moment into a case study for communication breakdowns. Fans of Blake rallied with boycott calls against The View, while supporters of the hosts defended their right to challenge guests. This aftershock rippled through late-night shows, with hosts like Jimmy Fallon and Stephen Colbert poking fun in their monologues, recreating the scene with exaggerated flair. The media frenzy continued for days, with articles in outlets like People and Entertainment Weekly dissecting every detail. Blake returned to his ranch, channeling the energy into songwriting, perhaps penning a tune about speaking your mind. Whoopi, undeterred, carried on with her duties, her reputation as a formidable moderator only enhanced. The event became a cultural touchstone, referenced in podcasts and op-eds about America's divided landscape. Ultimately, while no one emerged unscathed, it underscored the raw appeal of unscripted television, where personalities collide and sparks fly. As time passed, the sting faded, but the memory endured, a reminder that even stars aren't immune to the heat of the spotlight. In the weeks following the explosive clash on The View, the repercussions echoed far beyond the studio walls, shaping public discourse and influencing how celebrities approached media appearances. Blake Shelton, back in the public eye with concerts and interviews, addressed the incident in a podcast, laughing it off as a bad date but standing firm on his principles, which endeared him further to his fan base. Sales of his latest album saw a bump, proving that controversy can be a boon for business. Whoopi Goldberg, in her element, used the platform to discuss the value of tough conversations, earning praise from advocates for her handling of the situation. The View's producers reviewed protocols for guest interactions, aiming to balance edginess with civility in future episodes. Social media metrics showed the clip becoming one of the most watched moments in the show's history, spawning parodies and fan art that kept the buzz alive. Analysts noted a spike in searches for both Blake and Whoopi, highlighting their enduring star power. Fellow country artists like Jason Aldean and Miranda Lambert voiced support for Blake, while Hollywood figures sided with Whoopi, illustrating the industry divide. Talk show hosts across networks weighed in, some cautioning against alienating guests, others applauding the authenticity. The event even inspired think pieces on freedom of speech versus accountability, with experts debating on cable news. Blake and Whoopi never publicly reconciled, but rumors swirled of a behind-the-scenes olive branch, perhaps a phone call or mutual respect acknowledged privately. Fans speculated about a rematch, but both parties moved on, focusing on their careers. The View continued to thrive, booking high-profile guests undeterred by the drama. Blake's tour sold out arenas, his no-nonsense persona resonating more than ever.